This is Christy Hartman. Welcome back to my channel. We're going to do some botanical printing. I haven't done botanical printing in a while, even though I love it. And I thought, well, let's combine stencils with the botanicals and let's do a little bit of a how-to video. I'm going to have to break this up into a couple parts, and I don't know how many parts will end up being. For sure 2. This first part, I'm going to talk about the plants you can use, maintaining the plants you're using. Then we're going to talk about the paint that I prefer for botanical printing on my gel plate. I'm going to be upfront and honest. I am not a gardener. I love plants. I love to collect plants, but I am not a gardener. So I use a lot of plants which come from the wild or from some friends. That is a Japanese maple. And I have a friend of mine who mails me leaves from her tree. I would press them into my plant press, and then once they've been pressed, they're dry and you can use them throughout the season. I like to do this method because then when it's cold and snowy and not in season, I have plants that I can use for my botanicals. These are aspen leaves. I'm not going to use these today, but I will in one of my upcoming videos. After I have these pressed, then I just put them into, this is a Dick Blick catalog, and the paper keeps them fairly safe. I like Golden Open. This, I find, gives me a level of success that I'm happy with. This is a slow drying paint. It has, of course, a medium added to it, which extends your working time. It can be brayered on very, very thin so that when you're printing, your plant picks up all of the detail, or lots of the detail, from the leaf, from the stem, from a variety of different things. Let's get started printing. I'm going to print with Bone Black today, and this is an open paint, and that will give us a little bit longer work time. It also allows for me to be able to roll this paint very, very thin in order to achieve the detail from the leaves. Now, open paint is a blessing and a curse because of the fact that it takes a longer time for it to dry, but you also have a longer time to work, and as I mentioned before, the detail that you can get from your leaves is incredible. I'm arranging my leaves in a composition that I'm happy with. We're going to use deli paper to remove as much of that paint around those leaves as I possibly can. This will take about 3 or 4 pulls to get all of the paint off of it, and it depends on the amount of paint that you've used. I like a clean image, so I remove as much paint as I possibly can during this process. We're going to try this again, and I'm going to use a 5x7 inch plate this time. I'm going to use a little different arrangement of my leaves this time and a little different composition. Still the same process, still removing as much paint as I possibly can with that deli paper. I like to use deli paper for this because it's more inexpensive than the Carnival wet strength tissue paper, and it's readily available. You can see I've removed most of my paint, removing my plants. Occasionally your plants will come off in parts and pieces, and when that happens, if you can't pull them off your plate with your fingers, then I get out my stylus and I use the blunt end of my stylus to remove as much of that leaf as I can. We're going to use this PM Artist Studio stencil called Wavy Windows, and this is style 2. This iridescent bright gold fine. We're going to use the open because I want to get this very, very thin, which you can hardly see those on my plate, but I don't want to obliterate my leaves. pull this one. Okay. I love this one. This print is one of the 3 by 5 inch gel plate prints where I added bone black leaves to my plate. And I added a little bit of the gold open using a PM Artist Studio, which is a aqueous effervescence strip, to this, which gave some added interest to the backs of my leaves. And then I pulled it with Titan Buff, and I absolutely love the way this looks. This is another print on a 5 by 7 inch plate where I use the bone black with the leaves. I'm going to add gold fine to this using a stencil by PM Artist Studio called Cape Rocks, and I am brayering this out very, very thin, and then once it's dry I'm going to pull it with Quin Nico Azo Gold. And I do think this one just turns out to be spectacular. Thank you for joining me. I hope you learned something from part 1. Leave me a thumbs up. Leave me a comment. I love to hear your comments. Be a subscriber if you're not a subscriber already. It's always a pleasure. Please join me in my next video. I'll see you next time.